The Forsaken Heir. Previous episodes are available on the playlist. You can also visit our website for your favorite stories. A link is provided in the video description. Episode 55. Delon felt even more annoyed when he heard the expert ask about this. He thought of Charlie's proud face at the time, and he wanted to kill him immediately and then hurry. And that Isaac. He didn't give him face so much, he even made a video to threaten him, forcing him to swallow the ruby necklace. If it weren't for his threat, it would be impossible for him to make a decision to swallow. Isn't this fraudulent relying on Wade's family for support? Really think the world is invincible? It's outrageous. So Delon yelled at the expert angrily, if you shouldn't ask the thing, don't ask the thing. If you talk any more nonsense, be careful that I kill you. The expert can only shut his mouth with interest. Although the third young master of the Kevin family is not the strongest in the Kevin family, he can't provoke him after all. The ambulance drove quickly to the hospital, and after arriving at the hospital, it immediately pushed into the CT room. The advanced CT instrument was turned on, and Delon's abdomen was scanned in all directions. Experts can clearly see the eye-catching ruby necklace in his stomach through the film taken by CT. The key is that the necklace has been stuck in the curve of his intestines. The ruby and the necklace have formed a bend. Looking at it this way, if he wants to rely on his own, there is little chance of defecation. And the ruby is really big, and a large area of blockage has already occurred in the intestines. If it is consumed and other food residues enter the intestine, it may cause blockage and cause intestinal obstruction. After discussing and consultation, the experts made a decision: the ruby necklace must be removed immediately by surgery. Delon heard the bad news as soon as he was lifted off the CT machine, and his heart was extremely painful. But he is not a fool. He knows that he can never make fun of his life at this time, so he can only grit his teeth and said, if this is the case, please arrange surgery as soon as possible. An expert opened his mouth and said, the third young master, your mother and father are already on their way. They will be there soon. We will send you to the ward first, and wait while preparing surgical instruments and formulating surgical plans. You can just wait for your parents. Meet them before entering the operating room. Delon asked, are they here? Yes. The expert said, they have already set off and arrived. Delon could only nod his head. He was then taken to the intensive care unit by a nurse. In the intensive care unit, the beautiful little nurse was busy in front of him, changing her gown for a while, and wiping him again. Seeing that this nurse is so beautiful, Delon immediately moved with evil thoughts. It is estimated that it will take half an hour for parents to come over, and I will not be able to do personnel affairs in the next 3 months, so it is better to take this opportunity to have a post with this little beautiful nurse. While the little nurse was changing her clothes, he grabbed the little nurse's hand and said with an obscene smile, "Little beauty, what is your name? Would you like to accompany me once before I enter the operating room? Don't worry, I will definitely not treat you badly." The doctors and nurses of the Kevin Family Hospital know the Kevin family well and their strength is extraordinary, so whenever they have the opportunity, they will do everything possible to please the Kevin family. This little nurse never dreamed that she would be favored by the third young master today. This is like flying on a branch and becoming a phoenix. Among other things, even if it was just to accompany the third young master for a spring night, the third young master would definitely not treat her badly. If you can be pregnant with the child of the third young master during the one-night spring supper, wouldn't it be more expensive for a mother to depend on her child and become a master? There are many female celebrities who have sharpened their heads and have to be lovers for the rich, or get pregnant before they are unmarried, or give birth to the rich in order to soar into the sky. When the little nurse heard this, she almost nodded without thinking, and at the same time said in an extremely numbing voice, "Mr. Kevin, no matter what you want, I will do it." As soon as Delon heard this, he suddenly became angry, and immediately pulled the female nurse and pressed her under him. Fortunately, the ruby necklace hadn't had a substantial impact on him yet, so before the operation, Delon's ability had no problem at all. The little nurse was naturally also very active, and the two of them ignited the fire immediately. But just as the two were fighting forgotten, the door of the ward was suddenly pushed open. Delon was taken aback, turned his head and looked at the door, his soul frightened even more. He never dreamed that his parents and grandparents were all standing at the door at this moment, staring at him dumbfounded. Delon's grandma screamed, she couldn't stand firmly, and sat on the ground. Immediately afterwards, the lady yelled, obviously feeling sheer pain. Delon hurriedly pulled the sheets, wrapped himself up, and asked nervously, "Grandpa? Grandma? Dad? Mum? Why do you guys came so fast? You fraudulent!" Delon's father, old Kevin, cursed, and immediately went to help the old lady. As a result, just as he was about to support the old lady yelled in pain, "Oh no, it hurts too much. If I hurt my tailbone, let the doctor come quickly." The old master of the Kevin family was also furious, pointing to Delon's nose and cursing, "You are a shameless offspring, as a descendant of the family, how can you get along with this kind of woman? What if you let this kind of woman be pregnant with our Confucian heirs? Our family's face will be lost by you." Delon's face paled with fright. How could he have thought that his parents would have been to the hospital within 10 minutes? He didn't expect that he followed the female nurse on a temporary basis, and the male and female loved them, but he didn't expect to be watched by the elders. Seeing that Grandpa was so furious, he hurriedly confessed, "Grandpa, don't be angry. I was just confused for a while. It was because the doctor said that I couldn't do this for 3 months after the operation, so I couldn't hold it back. Please punish me." Old Kevin said angrily, "You fraudulent, your grandpa and grandma care about you so much, and come to see you specially. We didn't expect that you fraudulent is are not so innocent, and I am really angry." After speaking, he scolded again, "Have you seen your grandma injured? Don't come over and have a look." Delon knew that there was a disaster. His first thought was to quickly shake the pot, so he pointed to the female nurse and blurted out, "Dad, this fox seduced me." The female nurse hugged a pillow to block her body and said aggrievedly, "Young master, you can't spit your mouth. If it weren't for the third young master, how could I betray my boyfriend like this? He is very affectionate." Delon scolded angrily, "You have a boyfriend?" The female nurse said with tears in her eyes, "My boyfriend and I have been together for several years. I was planning to get married this year. If he knows about this, I won't be able to be a human being." Delon gritted his teeth with anger, while his father had a dark face and said to the female nurse, "I will let someone give you 5 million, and get out of this room and this hospital, now." When the female nurse heard that she had been given 5 million, she nodded in excitement, immediately wrapped her nurse uniform, and ran out happily. At this time, the doctor had also rushed over and sent the old lady who fell to the ground for examination. Dalan's grandfather and Dalan's father followed, leaving Dalan's mother Dong Xiahua in the ward. Dong Xiahua looked at him angrily at this moment, and accused, "Why is this kid so ignorant? Where can you not do that kind of thing? You have to do it in the hospital. You know your grandfather sees this situation. He's so much pissed off." "Mom, I was wrong." Dalan lowered his head at this time, aggrieved like a child. Dong Xiahua couldn't help sighing and said, "You don't know that your grandfather values the blood of the Kevin family the most. You are the male heirs of the Kevin family, whoever prevents you from getting on the stage. Pregnant with the child of the Kevin family, then he will never be reused by the father, the youngest son of the third uncle, and the second son of your fourth uncle. You don't know what will end." Dalan knew very well in his heart that the youngest son of the third uncle's family and the second son of the fourth uncle's family were all messing around outside, causing the woman who could not get on the table outside to become pregnant before being driven out of East Cliff by his grandpa. Now these two people have been assigned to the south, and each run a small industry that cannot be used on the table. They are not eligible to return to the East Cliff Kevin family and use the resources of the family by themselves. It can be said that they belong to the Kevin family, but more or less abandoned. The old master has been extremely proud of his blood throughout his life. This is because their family line was a master who was born in reading sages and served as high officials in the palace. In the Ming and Qing dynasties, don't know how many princes and princes were cultivated by their ancestors. Therefore, in the eyes of the old master, the blood of the Kevin family can only be reproduced and inherited by well-knowing ladies. It would be a great insult to the blood of the family if the women outside who could not get on the stage held the children of the family, and the old master could not bear it. Therefore, Dalan's heart is also terrified. Fortunately, his parents and grandparents showed up early, otherwise, if he didn't have any protective measures, he ended up with the female nurse and unfortunately made her pregnant with his own seed, then he would be finished. So he reverently said to Dong Xiahua, "Mom, don't worry, I won't do this again." Dong Xiahua sighed and said seriously, "It's useless if you tell me what you said. When you turn around, tell your grandpa well, you must let your grandpa forgive you, understand?" "Understood, Mom." Dalan nodded as if pounding garlic, and at the same time asked very depressed, "Mom, why are you here so fast? I thought I would have to wait at least another 20 minutes. Dong Xiahua glared at him, and said angrily, "We were planning to drive here, but after your grandma heard about it, she was worried about your safety, so she proposed to take a helicopter over. Who would have thought of encountering such a thing after coming here? Hurry up and change your clothes. Go and see how your grandma is doing." Dalan was very upset at this time. Hearing his mother told him to see his grandmother, he nodded hurriedly. Dong Xiahua turned around at this moment and said, "Now put on clothes, hurry up." Dalan hurriedly put on his clothes. Dong Xiahua asked him, what was going on in the Oris Hill this time? "Why did you rush back right after the past?" and I heard that you swallowed a string of ruby necklaces. I picked them for you and asked you to present them. Is that the necklace for Miss Song? What is going on?" Facing a series of questions from his mother, Dalan sighed and said, "Mom, don't mention it. I went to Oris Hill Song's house this time. I didn't expect to meet a smelly pauper with the name Wade. I made a bet with him and I lost the bet. I swallowed the ruby necklace into my stomach." Dong Xiahua frowned and said, "Why would you provoke someone named Wade? Are you from the Wade family? We can't afford the Wade family." Dalan said hurriedly, "It's not from the Wade family of Eastcliff, just a son-in-law named Wade in Oris Hill, who is a son-in-law and smelly pauper. What kind of ghost pill will be practiced, so he stunned the Song family? They are all frozen." Dong Xiahua asked again, "Then you told the person in charge of the Song family about the marriage alliance? Your father also hopes that you can borrow this matter to make your grandfather admire you." Dalan said angrily, "The family named Song doesn't know what is good or what is wrong, and Warnya has been frowning with the family named Wade. I seriously doubt if they have a leg." "Impossible." Dong Xiahua shook her head and said, "I have investigated the situation of the eldest Song family. She is a very good girl. It can be said that there are so many ladies in Eastcliff, they may not be able to compare themselves with her. And, I asked a private detective to tell me that Warnya had never been in love since she was a child." As she said, Dong Xiahua lowered her voice again and said in a low voice, "To tell you the truth, I also found someone to investigate the physical examination record of Warnya at a high-end private hospital some time ago. The record shows that she is still a big girl." "Ah!" When Dalan heard this, his eyes immediately appeared like a wolf. He blurted out subconsciously, "Warnya is still a place." Dong Xiahua whispered, "How many times have I told you, don't speak so vulgarly, in case your grandparents hear it, your impression will be bad again." Dalan hurriedly explained, "Sorry Mom, I just couldn't believe it for a while." Dong Xiahua said, "From my analysis, Warnya is really a good girl, a one in a million, like your grandfather who pays so much attention to blood, so important to the woman, status, and cultivation. I believe that if you can marry Warnya, your grandfather will definitely be very pleased, otherwise why did your mother let you travel all the way to Oris Hill?" With that, Dong Xiahua whispered, "I'm telling you, Warnya is now your chance. Your grandfather has always wanted your uncle's eldest brother to pursue the Wade family's fourth young lady, but the Wade family's fourth young lady doesn't look down on him at all. Your grandfather doesn't know how many times he scolded him for being incompetent. The second brother of your uncle's family, the Miss Eastcliff Xian's family that you were looking for, although she has a high status, the girl is a little bit too much to be on the stage, and she doesn't look good after plastic surgery. Moreover, that girl has a wild temperament. She doesn't look like pretty girls. Your grandparents are not very satisfied. If you can find a good girl like Warnya at this time, your grandparents would be so happy. At that time, in the eyes of your grandparents, you might be ranked first." Dalan realized at this time what Warnya meant to him. He was very annoyed and said, "If I knew this a long time ago, I would pursue her when I was studying abroad." Dong Xiahua asked back, "Then why didn't you pursue her then?" Dalan sighed, "At that time, I thought that foreign girls were better. In the past few years, I looked for foreign girls. As he said, he remembered something and hurriedly said, Mom, I lost such a big face in front of Warnia this time. I guess she has a bad impression of me. What can I do? Dong Xiahua sighed and said, You have to think of a way to see how to restore the bad impression you gave her this time. Anyway, chasing a girl can't succeed in a short while. You have to do it. Good preparation for a protracted battle. Dalan said, The doctor told me that after the operation, I might have to stay in bed for 15 days. I can't go to Oris Hill for a while. Dong Xiahua said, What should you worry about in 15 days? Warnia has been single for 26 years. When Dalan heard this, he immediately smiled and said with a grin, Mom, listening to you I can say that, I have more confidence. Dong Xiahua nodded and asked him, By the way, have you gone to Oris Hill to see Elsa this time? Dalan said hurriedly, How can I take care of her? When I got off the plane, I hurried to the Song's house, then hurried to the airport from the Song's house, and then flew back. Dong Xiahua said, Next time you go to Oris Hill, remember to visit her. She has been to Oris Hill for a long time and has never been back. Dalan nodded, but asked in surprise, Mom, why did Elsa go to the place where birds don't sh? In Oris Hill? Dong Xiahua said, I heard your grandfather say that the Wade family bought a company called Emgrand Group in Oris Hill some time ago. It is said that it seems to have given the business to a young master to run it. Your grandfather wants Elsa to try and see her. Can you develop a little with Wade family? Dalan frowned again. Does Oris Hill really have a young master from the Wade family? It's not possible. When he said this, he thought of Charlie again. Is this Charlie the young master of the Wade family? It's different, Isaac denied it, and that guy is a live-in son-in-law, a pauper. It is said that he is still a member of the uninfluenced family of Pauper in Oris Hill. It doesn't make sense to be the Charlie family. At this time, Dong Xiahua also said with some suspicion, I also thought that the chairman of the Emgrand Group might be the young master of the Wade family, but according to Elsa, she has never seen the chairman's face, so I suspect that even if the chairman is the young master of the Wade family, the young master is not in Oris Hill. He may still be in charge of remote control in Eastcliff, or even just hang up the position of chairman. In fact, he is too lazy to take care of things. After all, the Wade family is such a big business. A mere Emgrand Group can't get into their eyes at all. Dalan asked in astonishment, What is Elsa doing there? Why not let her come back quickly? Dong Xiahua said, Your grandfather does want her to come back, but she doesn't want to, so your grandfather will go with her. The relationship between the Eastcliff family is very complicated. They are like the 8 Banners nobles in the Qing dynasty, they are very close by marriage. After all, every family has males and females. When they reach the age of marriage, they are bound to marry. However, big families have a very high vision. They cannot choose a son-in-law or a daughter-in-law from ordinary people, so only find suitable objects among the major families. It can be said that there is no big family that does not marry other big families, and some prosperous big families will marry multiple big families at once. This is very similar to European royal families. In those old-school monarchy countries in Europe, their kings and queens are related to each other. This is because the entire European royal family is a huge family formed by long-term intermarriage. Dalan's mother, Dong Xiahua, is the daughter of the Dong family and Elsa's aunt. She had married Dalan's father 35 years ago. When the Kevin family and the Dong family were married, the strength of the Dong family was even stronger than that of the Kevin family. However, over the years, the Dong family has been going downhill and the Kevin family has been going uphill, so the gap between the two families has gradually widened. But the Confucian father and the old lady have always been very fond of Dong Xiahua. This is mainly because the Dong Xiahua did help the Kevin family a lot after she married into their family. After Dong Xiahua married, she gave birth to 3 daughters and Dalan was born to her as 4th child, so she was very fond of Dalan. Dalan is also 27 years old this year, and it seems that he is almost 28, so Dong Xiahua began to worry about her son's marriage. She first searched for a large circle in East Cliff's big family, but never found a satisfactory one. The Sui family and the Wade family's daughters were both high in value and status, and each family was eager to marry them. In contrast, the Kevin family and their strength were far behind. As for those families with similar status and strength to the Kevin family, the girls in their families who are of marriageable age are either already well known, or they are really not in Dong Xiaohua's eyes. She naturally hopes that her son can find a wealthy daughter with good net worth, ability, and appearance. However, most of the daughters of large families are girls with obvious advantages and obvious disadvantages. The advantage is that the family is rich and powerful, but the disadvantage is that except for the money, everything else is very mediocre. For example, some eldest daughters are not learning and skillful at all. They only spend money since they were young. Although they graduated from top universities in the world, they were all donated by money. Just like this rich man, he donated $15 million to get his son to Harvard. Most of the rich second generations like this are mostly gold and jade outsiders and losers among them. Not to mention those rich second generation girls, even Dalan is the embroidered pillow. Dalan went abroad to study, and his family also spent a lot of money as a donation to secure his admission. So even though he is the third young master of the Kevin family, in fact, in terms of personal ability, he is much worse than those high-achieving students who study hard. Dong Xiaohua didn't want her son to find such a straw bag in the future, so she picked it up and picked it over Warnya's head. But she didn't expect that her own son would be so useless. To celebrate Warnya's birthday, he went to have a dispute with others, and even swallowed a string of ruby necklaces in public because of a bet. At the moment, she felt extremely helpless in her heart. But seeing that her son was about to undergo surgery, she did not show her disappointment too much, but when he got dressed, he took her to see the injured old lady first. The old lady did hurt her bones just now. The doctor gave it an urgent look and thought she would have to stay in bed for at least a week. Because the old lady was in pain, the doctor gave her a closed injection and an analgesic injection. Dalan was ashamed to follow his mother to the old lady's ward. As soon as he entered the ward, his father walked up, raised his hand and slapped him fiercely, and yelled, "You fraudulent! It's really mud that can't support the wall. Fortunately, your grandma has no serious injury, otherwise if she had, I have to stab you." Dalan had never been beaten since he was a child. Suddenly he was slapped in the face by his father. The whole person was stunned, and he felt wronged. When the old lady saw him hit her grandson, she felt a little distressed, so she said, "After the order is taken, Dalan is still young. Although this kind of thing is not glorious, he can understand it. The old master is not as generous as the old lady." He glared at Dalan and said coldly, "Even if he is young, he is already an adult. An adult who can't even control himself, how can we expect him to be successful?" When Dalan heard this, his legs swayed. He is not afraid of his father hitting him, but he is afraid of his grandfather's denial of himself. Because if Grandpa really has great opinions on him, it will have a great impact on his future status in the family. When old Kevin heard this, his father was even more angry at this unfilial son when he heard this. So he waved his hand and slapped him again, screaming, "No, you fraudulent, if I find you again next time, I will have to break your leg." Dalan covered both faces. Aggrieved choked, "Grandpa, Dad, I really know I was wrong, and I will never make such a mistake again." The old master snorted coldly, "I'm not like your grandma. She spoils you grandchildren the most, but my principle of doing things has always been strong. If you have that another time, then leave East Cliff and never come back." Dalan nodded quickly, and said respectfully, "Grandpa, don't worry, there will be no next time." The old master's expression only eased slightly. The old lady complained a little bit, "You and your father are also right, one beats the child, the other scolds the child will have surgery soon." Dalan saw his grandma defending him in this way, and she was aggrieved, with a few tears walked to the old lady's bed, squatted down, holding her hand, and said, "Grandma, sorry, it is Dalan's fault." The old lady hurriedly reached out to help him wipe away the tears, and said, "Knowing your mistakes can make a lot of improvements. Grandma doesn't blame you." At this time, the gastroenterologist stepped in and said, "Mr. Dalan, the young master, it is time for surgery." Father nodded and said to Dalan, "This is just a minor operation. Follow the doctor yourself. I want to accompany your grandma here." Dalan nodded hurriedly and obediently agreed. Seeing this, the old lady hurriedly said to Dong Xiahua, "Xiahua, don't guard me here, go and follow along." Dong Xiahua was not too relieved to let her son undergo the operation alone, so she hurriedly said, "Okay Mom, I will go with Dalan." After the mother and son left with the doctor, Dalan's father said to the old master with a look of shame, "Dad, I'm so sorry, I taught him no way." The old master waved his hand blankly and said, "Dalan is almost 28 years old, it's time for him to stabilize. If a man doesn't get married, he will never grow up. Hurry up and find a suitable girl for him. Get him married." Old Kevin hurriedly said, "Dad, Xiahua and I have already found a suitable person for him. It is the daughter of the Oris Hills Song family. The girl is not only beautiful and generous, knowledgeable, but also very capable. I even talked to Hong Kong some time ago. Li Jiachen's family is on the line. What I think is that after marrying the Song family will become the first family in the south of the Yangtze River. In this case, it is equivalent to our power and has developed in the south of the Yangtze River. The old master nodded. It's a good idea to bypass the bottomless city of East Cliff and go to the south of the Yangtze River for development. Hurry up! After an operation, the sad Dalan finally took the ruby necklace out of his intestines. Waiting for him is 15 days of absolute bed rest, so he can only honestly lie down in the intensive care unit of his hospital. Since the pain pump cannot be used all the time, it will cause harm to the body, so on the second day of the operation, his pain pump has been removed. As a result, he ushered in constant pain in bed. The stronger the pain came, the more he hated Charlie in his heart. He can't wait to recover health quickly, and then rush to Oris Hill, find Charlie to settle the account. It is best to smash him into thousands of pieces, otherwise he's really sorry for the name of the third young master of the Kevin family. But Charlie didn't take him seriously. His wife, Claire's high school classmate, will get married on weekends. Charlie promised his wife to borrow the 2 luxury cars and use them as wedding cars for her classmate, so he called directly on Friday to Qin Gang, let him arrange for someone to send these 2 luxury cars to the Thompson villa. As soon as Qin Gang heard that Mr. Wade was finally going to use the 2 cars, he immediately arranged for someone to drive the trailer and send the 2 luxury cars to his house. The limited edition Hermes Bugatti Veyron and Aston Martin ONE77, whichever drive to the street, can bring a very high rate of return, and these 2 cars are very few in the country, and in the entire Oris Hill no one can use these 2 cars as a wedding car. After the car arrived, even if it stopped at a top-notch villa area like Thompson, it stood out from the crowd, making countless rich people drooling. When Elaine saw these 2 cars parked in her yard, she was completely confused. She watched the 2 cars several times, and asked Claire excitedly, "My dear girl, where did he get these 2 cars? These are too powerful." Claire said, "Mom, Charlie asked Mr. Stephen to borrow these 2 cars. My classmate is getting married tomorrow, so I borrowed these 2 cars for her as a wedding car." Elaine exclaimed, "When will our family have such a luxury sports car?" After speaking, she looked at Charlie again, and asked with a flattering expression, "My son-in-law, can't you let your elite friends send us a car like this? Your mother, I have lived so long, and I haven't been in such a luxurious car. What about your sports car?" Charlie actually doesn't have any superfluous feelings about cars. In his eyes, it's just a means of transportation. It's not good if it's too public, so he doesn't really have a good impression of these 2 cars, and he doesn't think driving 2 cars out is a great honor. This is the fundamental reason why he's not driven these 2 cars. So he said to Elaine, "Mom, these 2 cars look good, but they are too expensive to keep. Take this Bugatti as an example. 1 tire costs more than 100,000, plus 4 tires. It costs 500,000 to 600,000 to get up, and it can be maintained at a random time of tens of thousands. If it is scratched, it may cost more than 100,000 for 1 coat. How can our house be able to start?" When Elaine heard this, she sighed in disappointment, and said, "If you have the money to support this thing, it's better to set my teeth." As she said, she reached out and touched her tooth socket and complained, "My front teeth have been missing for so long, and don't know when I can plant them." Claire said, "Mom, don't worry, I have already made an appointment with the dentist in advance. As long soon as your legs are better, I will take you to implant the teeth and make the best porcelain teeth." Elaine nodded in satisfaction. Claire said to Charlie, "Husband, which one are you going to drive tomorrow?" Charlie said, "It doesn't matter, you choose one, and I will drive the other." Claire said nervously, "I'm afraid I can't drive well. Both cars are very powerful. I'm afraid that something will happen accidentally. If you scratch someone's car again, it will be troublesome." Charlie smiled and said, "It's okay, don't have such a big psychological burden, just treat these two cars as your own." Claire said, "You should give me an introduction and how to do it in detail." Charlie nodded and said, "Okay, then I will introduce this Bugatti to you." At this moment, a brand new Bentley Continental drove into the Thompson Villa area. The driver was Harold, who was dressed in a straight suit and looked like a dog. Sitting in the co-pilot was his father Noah. Sitting in the back row was the old lady of the Wilson family and Wendy. Recently, the Wu family's investment in the Wilson family has arrived, and the Wilson Group has repaid the loan owed to the bank, so the bank has also unblocked, and the Wilson Group has also unblocked the sealed Wilson family villa and antique cultural relics. The resurgence of the Wilson family group made the family extremely excited. Harold hadn't really experienced the life of the rich second generation for a long time, so he slapped the old lady, hoping that she could buy a luxury car from the company to fill the storefront. In the previous Wilson family, the best car was the Mercedes S450, which was priced at about $1.5 million. Noah's car was an Audi A8, while Harold's car was an old BMW. Originally, the family intended to replace it with a better car, but unexpectedly, something happened at home later. Not only was it not replaced with a car, but even the old BMW was found by the bank. Harold knew very well that if he wanted to become a rich second generation and let others look at him again, he must first have a good car. After all, he can't carry the Thompsons' villa on his back, and when he go out, what others really think about him is what kind of car he is driving. After such a long and hard life, Mrs. Wilson couldn't wait to make a high profile, so she immediately decided and bought a Bentley Continental that cost more than $3 million. Harold had never driven such an expensive car, so he was more excited than anyone else when he bought the car. At this time, Mrs. Wilson was sitting in the extravagant rear row of the Bentley, touching the handmade pure leather interior, and exclaimed, "This good car is really good. This Bentley is much better than my previous Mercedes." Harold said, "Grandma, Bentley is actually a bit worse than Rolls-Royce, or let's buy another Rolls-Royce if we don't look back." The old lady said, "A Rolls-Royce is worth 7 or 8 million. It is still too early to buy a Rolls-Royce. Our top priority now is to quickly restart the business of the Wilson Group." Harold hurriedly said, "Grandma, what I mean is that I also want to frustrate the spirit of Charlie's family. Don't think they can live in a Thompson first-class villa, but the car they drive is still 2SH, BMW 5 Series. Add up to less than 1 million, less than 1/3 of our Bentley. If we drive a 7 to 8 million Rolls-Royce, we just drive to their door and poke them. Go to the backbone of home." Wendy said, "Brother, do you still need a Rolls-Royce if you poke the spine of their family? This Bentley is enough." "Yes." Old Mrs. Wilson coldly snorted, and said, "Harold, drive directly to their house. I have to make fun of this family." I asked them to return to the Wilson Group before they were reluctant to come back to the Wilson Group. Now the Wilson Group is alive. I don't regret it after seeing them. Mrs. Wilson has always been very dissatisfied with Charlie's family. At the beginning, she begged them to come back, but no one of them took them seriously. Now that she has received a huge investment from the Wu family, she doesn't need to put their family in her eyes. Moreover, the old lady felt that Charlie's family was just outsiders. It looks like there is a Thompson first-class villa, but in fact it is nothing more than that. Both Charlie and Jacob did not have a job, and had no income at home. Although Claire opened a studio, the scale is small after all, and the income situation is not too optimistic. So the old lady firmly believes that their family is in the Thompson first class, that is, they can barely afford to live, but they must not be able to compare with their current self. At the beginning, she needed them to come back and ran to their families to make all kinds of pleadings. They lost their face, but they looked down on themselves and were reluctant to go back to the Wilson family again. Now the Wilson family has weathered the storm, and they just want to save the face they lost before. Get it all back. Bentley Continental stopped in front of Charlie's villa. Harold looked at the old lady beside him and asked, "Grandma, do you want me to knock on the door?" "No." Old Mrs. Wilson said with a sneer, "Honk the horn and let Elaine come out." Noah looked up and found that there were more than 20 green hats hanging on Elaine's balcony. He said angrily, "Elaine, the fraudulent, is addicted to hanging green hats. It's been so many days. She still didn't take it off." The old Mrs. Wilson said lightly, "She is willing to hang up, just let her hang up, but it's just a green hat. I advise you not to care too much. Now that the Horaya has knocked out that wild species, you should stop. Take this matter seriously." "Mom, what you said is easy." Noah said angrily, "This lady is not only pregnant with other people's wild species, but also infected me with a venereal disease. I still have to go to the hospital to infuse 6 bottles of fluid every day. Enough for a month, it was all her harm." The old Mrs. Wilson said disdainfully, "You always take her to your heart, and others have always targeted you, such as the green hats that Elaine hangs. If you don't take Horaya's matter seriously, Elaine will do it. What can you do if she hangs 200 green hats? After all, you still leave others with flaws. Then when others embarrass you, don't blame others." Noah sighed angrily when he heard this. He has now separated from Horaya. The reason why he has not divorced her is because Regner of the Wu family does not allow him. If he continues to regard this as a huge shame, he will definitely be like his mother in the future. The same, has always left the opponent flaws. Thinking of this, he gritted his teeth and said, "Mom, I understand what you mean, just let Elaine hang up, I just didn't see it." The old Mrs. Wilson nodded in satisfaction and said to Harold, "Harold, honk the horn and get Elaine out." "Okay, Grandma." With a smug smile on his face, Harold pressed the car horn. The huge whistle sounded outside Charlie's villa. Claire and Charlie were sitting in a sports car with excellent soundproofing, and they didn't hear the sound very clearly, but Elaine in the bedroom upstairs suddenly became annoyed when she heard the sound. She was holding her mobile phone in bed and watching drama at this time. During this time, she was bored at home every day, and she depended on watching dramas to pass the time. When she saw the excitement, there was a continuous piercing horn outside, loud and sharp, which made her upset for a while, so she immediately went to the terrace and looked down. A brand new Bentley parked at her door and kept honking the horn. Elaine suddenly cursed, "Where's the smelly rug? Something wrong? What are you doing at someone's door?" Noah was in the car through the window, and saw Elaine standing on the patio fence calling out, smiling and saying, "Mom, look, Elaine Peach has come out to curse on the street." "Ha ha." Mrs. Wilson was overjoyed and said, "Elaine, this stinky lady loves money the most. If we let her know that we are relieved now, she will definitely be jealous and uncomfortable. Then I will give her a willingness to let them have the illusion of returning to Wilson's house. She will definitely lick my face and beg me, and then I will humiliate her." So, the old Mrs. Wilson smiled and pushed the car door, and was about to get out of the car to show off with Elaine, but she didn't expect a pot of cold water to be poured on her head. With a crash, the old lady only felt cold from head to toe. She lifted her wet head and looked up. She just saw Elaine holding a wash basin with a smug look on her face. The old lady raised her head angrily and cursed, "Elaine, you dog thing! Why do you pour water on me?" Only then did Elaine recognize that it was the old Mrs. Wilson, and said, "Oh, whoever bought a broken car and honked the horn in front of my house? It turns out that you are the one who is not dead. What's the matter? Your daughter-in-law is here. In the black coal mine, you have made a lot of money by selling yourself part-time? You have money to replace you with a new car? What kind of broken car? It seems quite bluffing." Old Mrs. Wilson angrily cursed, "You don't know good and bad things. This is Bentley. Bentley Continental. Imported from the UK, more than 3 million. Elaine leaned on the railing and said with a look of disdain, "Oh, driving a car worth more than 3 million is not you? Do you know what kind of car my daughter and son-in-law drive?" Mrs. Wilson sneered, "Isn't your daughter's is just a BMW 520? Tell you, I can buy her 10 of these cars." Elaine sighed and said, "Look at this old thing for you, a Bentley worth more than 3 million. It's just a woolen thread? My son-in-law has 2 top luxury cars, any of them cost 40 to 50 million. He bought these 10 of yours and turned around. Look at your unseen appearance." Harold also put down the car window at this time, poked his head out of the driving position, looked at Elaine, and mocked in a cold voice, "Elaine, you don't have front teeth, and you still like to brag so much? Just Charlie's smelly pauper, why drive a 40 to 50 million car? He doesn't even deserve to touch it." Elaine spit out a few pieces of melon seed shells at Harold and said contemptuously, "Harold, don't be here with the second aunt and chick. If you have this time, you can go to a hospital and check if you are from the Wilson family. After all, your mom is so prodigious, maybe she put a green hat on your dad more than 20 years ago?" When Harold heard her make a fuss about his mother's cheating, he scolded angrily, "You talk nonsense again, I will cut off your tongue." Elaine put her tongue out and said, "Come on, you come to cut, fraudulent, it's not you that's amazing." Harold was so uncomfortable, pushing the car door and scolding the street. The old lady stopped him at this time and said, "Harold, don't talk, I'll talk to her." Harold closed his mouth angrily. The old lady said arrogantly, "Elaine, let me tell you that the Wilson family is not what it used to be. The 80 million investment has been paid, and the Wilson family has passed the debt crisis and will reopen now. You are not envious? If you beg me, maybe I will show compassion to let Claire and Jacob return to work in the Wilson Group, and your pension will be restored." Hearing what the old lady said, Elaine was stunned, feeling very upset. Someone really invested in the Wilson family? Are they crazy? Just the few broken fish and shrimps of the Wilson family, how many can be on the table? Relying on them, it is strange that the Wilson Group can do it. Wouldn't they have money to burn? Thinking of this, Elaine immediately sneered and said, "You old lady, don't be too troublesome in front of me. As far as your family is, even if the Wilson Group reopens, it will definitely go bankrupt in a few days. What kind of stuff are in your family? Just like Harold, what can you do? He won't burn the whole family out." Elaine's words also touched the pain of the old Mrs. Wilson. Although the Wilson family now has Regnar's investment, it does not mean that the Wilson family can sit back and relax in the future. After all, Regnar's money only helped the Wilson family solve the survival problem, but the Wilson Group really needs to be led by capable people if it really wants to develop. However, the family really didn't have any talents. Noah himself was mediocre, and Harold was a low-handed waste. He was very good at eating inside and out. It really made him find a way to help the company make some money. It was really difficult. He has been in the Wilson Group for several years. Basically, a business has not been completed. It is just a waste of insufficient success and more failure. As for Wendy, not to mention, after graduating from Pheasant University, she just wandered around every day. When she first fell in love with Gerald, in addition to spending money every day, after breaking up with Gerald, she followed Fredman and Barina. Not only did she have no ability to run a business, but her own reputation was completely stinking. She can't count on it. However, the old Mrs. Wilson herself is also getting older, and she can't do many things by herself, and she is also incapable of doing things. In this case, she feels more and more that her granddaughter, Claire, whom she has never waited for, is actually the best in the entire Wilson family. The most capable one. Therefore, although she is here to mock Elaine, she actually wants to use her crushing advantage to make Elaine yield to herself again. Once Elaine yields to her again, she will help her persuade Claire to return to the Wilson family group. If Claire is willing to come back, she will definitely give her a position of director, so that she will lead the group to come back to life and create greater glories. Old Mrs. Wilson also learned about Claire's current situation before. Although her studio is not large, she has a lot of orders. The Emgrand Group gave her many design orders, and the Song family, the White family, and the Cheen family also gave her many orders. Claire is slowly working on these orders now. If she can be allowed to return to the Wilson Group, won't she be able to bring them back too? Thinking of this, the old Mrs. Wilson resisted her anger and said to Elaine, "Elaine, we mother-in-law and daughter-in-law, we don't have any deep hatred, why should you bite on us? In my opinion, we might as well let go of our prejudices. Cooperation, what do you say?" Elaine said annoyedly, "Dead old woman, you don't give me ecstasy here, we don't have deep hatred? You forgot how my leg was broken by you? You old thing, wait for me, sooner or later I want to break both of your legs. Old Mrs. Wilson pointed to the newly bought Bentley Continental and said seriously, Elaine, as long as your family is willing to come back, I will buy your family a Bentley exactly the same. What do you think? In the eyes of Mrs. Wilson, Elaine loves vanity the most, and also loves taking advantage. If she really matches their home with a Bentley, she will definitely try to persuade Claire. However, the old lady counts everything, but ignores another characteristic of Elaine's humanity, that is, holding grudges. Although Elaine loves to take advantage of her, she herself is extremely vengeful. Before that, she had been persuading Claire to return to the Wilson family group because she had no grudges with the old lady. It was nothing more than a bit of awkwardness between the mother-in-law and daughter-in-law. In front of money, a little awkwardness will naturally not have any effect on Elaine. However, things are different now. Elaine has a deep hatred for Mrs. Wilson in her heart. Back in the detention center, she took Gina to torture Elaine to death. Not only did she torture her in an unethical manner, she even broke her leg when she finally left. Elaine hated the old lady early in her heart. Therefore, even if the old lady really paired her with a Bentley, she couldn't dilute her hatred for the old lady. What's more, Elaine is now savvy. She knows that the person she can't offend is her son-in-law Charlie. Otherwise, she might be driven out of this luxurious villa by him. Now her husband wants to divorce her, and her daughter can't help her. Of course she can't offend Charlie. Otherwise, if she really angers Charlie and gets kicked out of the house, wouldn't she has to wander on the street? What's more, Elaine knows how cruel this dead old woman's heart is, and Elaine knows better than anyone, if she is fooled by her, she might be deceived in the future. Therefore, she has decided not to be fooled by the old lady again. So, she raised her eyebrows and said mockingly, "The old thing, you have said that you have a broken Bentley, even 1/10 of son-in-law's car can't be compared. How can I look at this kind of garbage? Just your family, it's shameless to think of this SHT as a treasure if you haven't seen anything in the world, and lick your face to my door." Harold blurted out, "Elaine, you don't know how to raise your head here. Grandma gives you a chance to lower your head and admit your mistakes. If you don't take it well, you're still bragging? If you miss this opportunity, you won't even cry later." Elaine smiled and said, "You don't know who produced the small wild species, and said that I am bragging? Wait, I will show you what a real luxury car is now." After speaking, Elaine immediately took out the remote control key of the main door and pressed the open button. In order to facilitate the owners self-driving in and out of the villas of Thompson, the villas are equipped with remote electric gates, so that the owners can directly use the key to remotely switch the gates and operate the gates without getting off the car. As soon as Elaine pressed the key, the opposite door began to open slowly, and the two top supercars directly facing the door were exposed. At this moment, Charlie was sitting in that Aston Martin, and he had just explained to Claire the operation process of this supercar in detail, and was about to take her out for a lap. So, he pressed the red button to start the engine, and immediately after that, the 7.3-liter V12 engine exploded like 12 wildly roaring beasts. Old Mrs. Wilson and the other Wilson family members were all startled by the loud noise that suddenly came out of the yard. When everyone looked intently, they saw that a supercar with a fierce face like a beast had been launched, slowly approaching the open door. Charlie wanted to take his wife out for a stroll, but he didn't expect that he really wanted to use the key to open the door remotely, and the door opened by itself. He didn't know that this was Elaine's contribution, and he was wondering when he saw a black car parked at the door, and there was an old lady standing beside the car. A closer look revealed that the old lady turned out to be Claire's grandmother. Claire was also very surprised, not understanding why Grandma was at her door. Charlie could see that there was a car next to the old lady, a Bentley Continental. He couldn't help being surprised. How could the Wilson family have money to buy a Bentley? Is it from Regner? This grandson is really willing to work hard to disgust him. At this time, Harold, who was sitting in the car, saw an Aston Martin driving out of the courtyard of Charlie's villa, and he was shocked to speak. A few seconds later, Harold said with an unhappy expression, "Charlie, the fraudulent, can actually drive an Aston Martin. How can this car cost 3 or 4 million? It's not worse than our Bentley." When Wendy was with Gerald, the young master of the White family, she often heard Gerald talk about various super sports cars, so she recognized this car as the famous Aston Martin ONE77 at a glance. So she hurriedly said, "Brother, this Aston Martin is not an ordinary Aston Martin, this is Aston Martin's most expensive ONE77, and it costs tens of millions. What is it?" Harold blurted out subconsciously as if he was struck by lightning, "You said this car is an Aston Martin ONE77? Wendy nodded. Most people can only recognize the distinctive shark face when looking at Aston Martin, but there are specific differences between each Aston Martin, and most people cannot see it from the front face of the car. Unlike Mercedes, the cheapest Mercedes is only more than 200,000, but the most expensive Mercedes needs to be several million or even higher. But looking at the front face of Mercedes, it is difficult for anyone to see this car at a glance. What model is it?" Wendy doesn't know much about cars, but she has passively accepted some knowledge about super sports cars. After all, she has been with Gerald for several years. The second young master of the rich family likes to study sports cars as his favorite hobby, so Wendy can be said to be more proficient in sports cars. When Harold heard that this Aston Martin ONE77 was worth tens of millions, he felt sore and hated. He thought that by buying a Bentley Continental, I would be able to take a good look at Charlie's family, but he didn't expect Charlie to come out with a sports car worth tens of millions. At this time, Harold saw a sports car parked in the yard. He recognized the sports car brand that all boys dream of, exclaimed, and blurted out, "Isn't the one next to it is a Bugatti, a Bugatti? Bugatti at least more than 20 million, right?" Wendy took a look and said with a complicated expression, "Brother, that car is a limited edition CO produced by Bugatti and Hermes, and the price is more than 50 million. Harold only felt as if he had suffered heavy blows one after another. He was stunned and said, "How did Charlie get such an expensive car, that smelly rug? And even if it is one, he actually has two." Noah's face was also ugly. "It's probably that Charlie trapped out to cheat people again. I don't understand. Did Oris Hill's rich guys trap their brains and let the donkey kick it? How come they all believe so?" Charlie, this smelly rag. Harold was also very uncomfortable, and said angrily, I want to know too. I've been waiting for Charlie this fraudulent to thunder, but he is still alive now. Wendy's eyes were red, and she said aggrieved, if it weren't for Charlie, Gerald and I would have been married, our family would not have been so miserable, and my mother would not have been sent to the Black Coal Kill to suffer so many crimes. Noah said angrily, don't mention that peesh woman. At this moment, the old Mrs. Wilson saw Charlie and Claire driving a weird-looking car to the front, and she stepped to the side of the cab, looked at Charlie in the car, and said arrogantly, what kind of awesome car did your family buy? It's just such a ragged thing. How does it look different from a Ford Mondeo? The captain of the Wilson Group's security team used to drive this car, isn't it only 200,000? Because Aston Martin was acquired by the Ford Group, the Mondeo launched by the Ford Group in recent years has applied the most classic shark face of Aston Martin models. So Ford Mondeo is also called Aston Mondeo. And the sales of Ford Mondeo are pretty good, you can see it everywhere on the street. But Aston Martin is a top sports car brand, in fact, the exposure to the people is very low, so over time, most people are more familiar with the Ford Mondeo car, and even appear like Mrs. Wilson, who mistakenly put Aston Martin, recognizes Mondeo's situation. Charlie heard her say this, and didn't bother to be familiar with her, so he said to her, don't care whether my car is 200,000 or 100,000. You are blocking the door of my house now. Move the car quickly, I want to get out. Elaine on the terrace upstairs looked at Mrs. Wilson, sneered, and said, you old thing is really not long-eyed, what kind of Ford Mondeo is this? It's called Aston Martin, and you don't even know this. A face comes out to show off. Old Mrs. Wilson looked up at Elaine and yelled, ah, your mother, ding, I have been here in heavy winds and waves for so many years. What good car I have never seen. I don't believe that such a small car can be more expensive than my Bentley. Although Harold usually likes to pretend to be coerced the most, but at this time he also knows that not only does it make no sense to pretend to be coerced in this way, it is self-defeating. So he hurriedly pushed the door and got out of the car, helped the old lady, and whispered in her ear, Grandma, let's go home quickly. Go home? What home? The old Mrs. Wilson coldly snorted, today is a good day for the rebirth of our Wilson family, and a big day for the re-emergence of our Wilson Group. I want this family to see clearly, don't feel that we live now. After a Thompson first-class villa, I am an adult. Compared to us, they are still far behind. Our family now runs a Bentley, how about them? Even a BMW they can't afford to open such a small one. There's a car, and there are only 2 seats, what is enough for? Harold was embarrassed and said, Grandma, his car is much more expensive than ours. This is a super sports car, worth tens of millions. What? Old Mrs. Wilson shivered all over, and blurted out, it's just such a small thing, tens of millions? Is it made of gold? Harold's face was hot, and while pulling her into the car, he said in a low voice, not only is this one he drove for tens of millions, but the one parked in the yard is also tens of millions. The cars add up to almost 100 million. When Mrs. Wilson heard that the 2 cars together estimated to exceed 100 million, her body shuddered. 2 cars add up to more than 100 million. What is this concept? These 2 cars are almost worthy of a Thomson first-class villa. It took only RMB 3 million for a car of her own, and she already felt it was incredible. According to this, Charlie's car had more than 30 cars. The old lady feels uncomfortable. She thought she was here to humiliate others, but she didn't expect it to be self-humiliating. The point is that someone really spends so much money on such an expensive car, isn't it? A car made of pure gold is only at this price, right? Old Mrs. Wilson was indignant, and Harold, who was on the side, was afraid that she would be boring again, and quickly helped her to walk back to the Bentley. Elaine stood on the terrace with a sneer and said, "Oh, old woman, why are you not arrogant? Why are you so frustrated? It's not you who sits on a Bentley and sneer?" Old Mrs. Wilson turned her back to Elaine, feeling like a man on her back. She didn't need to look back to know how much ridicule and contempt Elaine would have when looking at her eyes now. This is really my own initiative to stretch my face to others and let others beat me. If I knew this was the case, I must have avoided their home far away. Why am I here to touch this mold? Moreover, for no apparent reason, Elaine broke a basin of cold water. I was thinking about going home and changing my clothes, but suddenly a basin of cold water was poured down. This basin of water not only poured the old Mrs. Wilson very heartily, but also poured Harold into embarrassment. To talk to the usual, Harold would definitely scold the other person, but this time, he really had no face to yell at Elaine. Afterwards, he got into the car in a panic, and drove away. The old Mrs. Wilson sat in the car and scolded her with anger. Noah in the co-pilot was also depressed, and said, "This Elaine is really disgusting. She always runs me over with Horiya's thing. After today, don't know how she will change her law in the future. Running on us." Old Mrs. Wilson was also very upset. Originally, Regner gave them the task to make Charlie sick and uncomfortable, but she didn't expect that she would be run and calculated by Charlie's family ever since they moved into Thomson Villa. Especially the last time she made dumplings with daffodils and almost lost half of life in it. Wendy on the side couldn't help sighing, "Grandma, if we always can't get a bargain in front of the Charlie family, will Mr. Wu lose confidence in us and drive us out?" "Yes, Grandma." Harold also said hurriedly, "This villa is not ours. Moreover, Regner invested the money in our business. It is also conditional. He can ask us to return the money at any time. If we can't afford him, he will file a lawsuit and seal us up at that time. We will still go bankrupt, or we will have nothing." Mrs. Wilson nodded very seriously. She knew that her grandchildren were right. If she was unable to help Regner's worries for a long time, then Regner might give up on them. Thinking of this, she gritted her teeth and said, "We still have to find a way to quickly frustrate Charlie's spirit." Noah asked, "Mom, do you have any good ideas?" Old Mrs. Wilson shook her head. In this situation, she really couldn't think of a good way. Wendy said, "Grandma, or let's use the Wilson group to suppress Claire's studio." "It doesn't make sense." The old Mrs. Wilson said solemnly, "All the orders Claire got were from the Emgrand group, the White family, and the Chin family. How can you suppress her? This is also..." Wendy was very annoyed. She has been compared by Claire in various ways all the time. This made her feel full of hatred towards Claire in her heart. Unexpectedly, the days of Claire and Charlie, not only were there no thunderstorms, but they went over and over, which made her feel very uncomfortable. When she thought that Charlie's house had 2 top luxury cars that even Gerald could only hope for, she hated Claire. Why can't she live such a good life? And she is now a junior in Oris Hill's famous street? At first, she was forced to follow Fredman, and later she was thrown to Barina by Fredman. It was nothing more than with Barina, but when following Barina, instead of getting any benefit from him, she licked a whole row of urinals in the brilliant club with him. That incident completely discredited her in Oris Hill. The current self is a laughingstock in Oris Hill, and don't know how many people have been poked on the backbone. Wendy felt that all of this was given by her cousin Claire. Therefore, she hoped to see Claire defeated more than anyone else. So she suddenly had a vicious strategy in her heart, and she said, "Grandma, I have a good idea. If we can do it, Mr. Wu will be very pleased and may even give us a big reward." "Oh?" Mrs. Wilson hurriedly asked, "What is the strategy? Hurry up and tell me." Wendy coldly said, "Isn't Charlie the one who loves Claire the most? It seems that he and Claire have never been married. In other words, Claire should still be. For this reason, if we set up a bureau to find someone to put Claire to sleep, and then make a video and upload it to the internet, wouldn't Charlie collapse? By then, Mr. Wu will definitely be very happy." Old Mrs. Wilson frowned and said, "The idea is a good one, but you have to think clearly that Charlie is still very well connected in Oris Hill. If we really do such a thing, he will definitely fight with us. Yes, he has a very good relationship with the Mr. Orville on the road. In case of a murder order against our family, what life do we have to find anywhere?" Noah also said with a look of horror, "This thing is absolutely impossible to do. Regner must also know that Claire is Charlie's fate. Why didn't he start with Claire? It must be because he is afraid that Charlie is crazy. Find him in revenge. You forgot, just because his brother-in-law abducted and sold children, Charlie took his brother-in-law a dozen or so people to river. If someone provokes Claire, wouldn't it be copied by him? Yet." Harold also panicked, and blurted out, "Wendy, your brain is pretty funny. If we really do this kind of thing, then we must be caught by River too." When Wendy heard this from her family, she was also full of fear. She hated Claire too much just now, so she wanted to ruin her. Just thinking of Charlie's ferocious means made her back cold. At this time, Noah suddenly said excitedly, "By the way, although we can't do anything to Claire, we can start with Elaine." What Noah hates most is not Horia who cuckolded him, but Elaine who insulted and hated him over and over again. Thinking of the more than 20 green hats fluttering in the wind on Elaine's balcony, Noah wanted to smash her body into pieces. Those 20 green hats, every time they float in the wind, they are merciless lashes to him. So he felt that if he wanted revenge, he would naturally start from Elaine, which couldn't be more appropriate. And most importantly, revenge on Elaine will not arouse Charlie's hatred. Otherwise, if everyone started to attack Claire, it would be tantamount to touching Charlie's inverse scales, and it would very likely cause a murderous disaster. Even Regner didn't dare to attack Claire, so naturally his family couldn't cause that trouble. Noah's proposal was immediately approved by the whole family. During this period of time, Elaine has always spared no effort to mock their family, and has deeply angered everyone. She finds a breakthrough from her, finds a way to fix her, and can also relieve the whole family. Therefore, Harold hurriedly asked, "Dad, what is a good way? Tell us quickly." Noah gritted his teeth and said, "Find an opportunity to ruin her, make her the laughingstock of the people of the whole country, and let her feel the feeling of being pierced by countless people." Speaking of this, Noah said again, "Also, it's better to get her a STD too." Harold said in surprise, "Dad, are you going to do it yourself?" When Noah heard this, he was furious and slapped him in the face. He cursed, "You trap me! The dog can't spit out ivory. Give me my hand. Just Elaine? She deserves it too." In fact, both Elaine and Horia are mature women with lingering charm. However, these two charming women are in a bit miserable situation. Needless to say, Horia had just miscarried and had a venereal disease that had not yet been cured. Now she was beaten by her husband and was lying in the hospital with her injuries and treated with venereal diseases. Elaine is also miserable now, with her broken leg still in plaster, and her two front teeth were broken again. How can she still have the original charm? No man was interested in it. Harold slapped him, and said aggrievedly, "Dad, you said you wanted her to contract a venereal disease, and I thought you were going to do it yourself." Noah cursed, "Can't you find someone else to start?" Harold said, "Who are you looking for?" "Don't know." "Look for it, look for the young and strong one, preferably the one who is sick." Harold said awkwardly, "This is really not easy to find." Noah smacked his lips and said, "I'll find it, even if I can't find the sick, I have to find someone to take care of her." The next day, Claire's high school classmates got married. The couple drove a supercar at dawn and set off from Thompson to Wu County, a suburb of Oris Hill. Wu County is about 60 kilometers away from the city center. Although it is a little far away, it is fortunate that there is a direct highway. Claire's high school classmate lives in the suburbs of Wu County. When the two followed the navigation and came to the community where she lived, they discovered that it turned out to be an old community with a house age of at least 20 or 30 years. All the houses in this community are no more than 6 stories, and the houses are built very densely. The green paint on the outside of the house is already mottled, revealing the color of cement. The entrance of the community is very narrow, and there are relatively high-speed bumps. In addition, you can see that the road occupation inside is very serious. It is not the garbage cans that occupy the road, or the tricycle bicycles, motorcycles, or others. The dilapidated cars are parked against the road, so it is very narrow inside. Charlie drove the Bugatti in front, glanced at the entrance of the community, and called Claire and said, "My wife, the road conditions in this community are too complicated. I guess the chassis of our sports car is so low, we can't drive in at all, or let's park the car and walk in." Claire said, "Okay, stop first, and I will stop after you." Charlie leaned the car on the side of the road very well, and his wife Claire also parked the car behind him. The two got off the cars, and passers-by in the early morning saw these two top luxury cars suddenly come to this economically depressed small county. They stopped and took pictures with their phones. Charlie didn't want to be too ostentatious, so he pulled Claire into the community. Fortunately, the two came early, so there are not many passers-by now, otherwise, they will be surrounded by water. It was only 7:40 in the morning. After Claire and Charlie entered the community together, they couldn't help but sigh. I visited her house once when I was in high school, and her family lived here at that time. I think their family still lives here for so many years. Charlie looked at the dilapidated building and couldn't help sighing. The house shouldn't be much bigger, right? Claire gave a hum, and said, their house is a 2-bedroom house, which adds up to more than 60 square meters. Charlie asked curiously, how do they live in a 2-bedroom house with 4 people? Didn't you say that she has a younger brother? Yes. Claire said, the family can't afford a big house, so she and her brother lived in the same room since they were young. Later, she went to school in another place. When she graduated from college, her brother was also a big boy. It's impossible for 2 people to live in another room, so my classmate went to Oris Hill to work hard, and rented a house out there. As she said, she sighed and said, isn't she going to get married today? She has to get married from her natal according to the rules, so she came here last night and waited for her to get married this morning. Charlie nodded lightly and said, if someone in any community marries a girl, at least they will get a rainbow gate at the gate of the community, and write on it the joy and celebration of the daughters going out of the pavilion. Didn't the classmates make it at home? I can't tell at all when I walked in. Today someone is going to get married. Claire helplessly said, her mother's family didn't want her to marry because the other party didn't give the bride price, but she was pregnant. So there is no other way. I heard her say that her mother's family is very angry and will not wait. Seeing her, she also said that if she is married today, the whole family will not go there. If she wants to leave, let her go alone. Charlie couldn't help but said, this is a bit too much. Why is it her own daughter? If she is going to marry, parents and younger brother can't even go there? It's too impersonal. Claire said with some sympathy, my classmate is very pitiful. Her parents have told her long ago that no matter who she marries, as long as she can give the family 300,000 gift money, it will be good for her brother to buy an apartment. But she insisted on marrying this person, and her husband's family didn't give her the gift money, so her parents and brother wanted her to knock off the child and find a man who could give the gift money. But she didn't agree with her life and death, so her parents hated her very much. Even her brother hated her very much. If we don't come to help her today, I guess she can only get married by herself. Hearing this, Charlie asked Claire curiously, what? She got married today, did she inform you of an old classmate? Yeah. Claire said, she wants me to help her, otherwise she can't handle it alone. I originally wanted her to find a few old classmates to help her. Even if it is to cheer up, but she is not willing. Charlie said helplessly, I guess she doesn't want to lose face in front of so many students, it's understandable. Claire nodded and said, I have never seen her so poor. On such an important day of marriage, her maiden-in-law's family will add obstacles to her. As she said, Claire couldn't help sighing, Charlie, Actually, I really think it's good to marry you. If I'm really asked by my family to marry young masters from rich people, don't know what I will be bullied by my husband kind." Charlie's expression was a bit awkward. His own wife doesn't know yet, the rubbish husband she married is the young master of the top family in the country. Seeing that his expression was a bit wrong, Claire thought he was angry, and explained hurriedly, "Charlie, don't think too much, I have no other meaning, just want to say that marrying you is fine." Charlie nodded and smiled and asked her, "If someday I become the young master of a rich family, what will you do?" Claire smiled and said, "What you said is not true, because you are an orphan and you cannot be the young master of a rich family." Charlie said, "I'm just making an analogy, what if I am?" Claire smiled and said, "If you really are the young master of some rich man, then I will divorce you." Charlie asked in surprise, "Are you serious?" Claire chuckled, "What about you? Hurry up, this is the building, let's go upstairs." Charlie shook his head helplessly, and followed her into the old staircase unit. What surprised him was that today was the day when her classmates gets married, and they all walked to the door of the unit. The family still didn't even post a happy word. It seemed that they hadn't made any preparations for a girl to marry. The couple walked up the stairs together. When they reached the third floor, they heard someone arguing and yelling. "You money loser, you are really prepared to marry their house if you don't want a penny? If you just marry like this, I won't be allowed to be stabbed to death by someone in the future?" The speaker was a middle-aged woman, and her voice sounded very pungent, which matched Elaine. At this time, they heard a middle-aged man shout in a cold voice, "This grandson's family is really deceiving people too much. The child is pregnant with them, and they don't even give a penny as a gift. Are they not afraid to beat the child?" A young man replied, "The talents of the Sun family are not afraid. They wish my sister beat the child, because they don't look down on my sister at all. They always think that my sister is behind their home." After finishing speaking, he said again, "Sister, why do you have to marry that man? The fraudulence family is so bad. You can ask about it in our community. Whose daughter did not give the betrothal gift? My good buddy's sister, married to an ordinary family in the next county town, and the family gave 280,000 beauties. Now he has paid down payment to buy a house in the county. The down payment was made with his sister's gift, and his sister returned 50,000 for the decoration. If you marry that man, what can I do in the future?" "That's right. I don't think I'm too embarrassed by you. You have to think about it for your brother. Your brother is 22 this year. It's when he was looking for a partner to get married. How many little girls do you choose now? There is no house. Get him ready, which girl is willing to have S3X with him?" At this time, they heard a woman grievingly said, "I love Cardin sincerely, and I will not spend his money when I am with him." "Really love each other?" The middle-aged woman sneered and sternly said, "I yuck. If the fraudulent Cardin really loves you, how could he treat you this way? He won't give you a gift without a penny, or even get married. If he doesn't come to pick you up, can't let you go on your own for dozens of kilometers? Is this a human business?" The young man yelled, "The dog Cardin just doesn't look down on us at all. He thinks our family is poor and can't match their family, so he doesn't put our family in his eyes, and he won't come to pick up the bride on the wedding day. Son, this kind of thing, I haven't heard of it when I grow up. After finishing speaking, he said again, Sister, if you marry so silly today, my parents and I will lose face in whole county. The woman said, You don't need to talk any more, I have made up my mind. I must marry today. Even if I rent out by myself, I will marry him. After finishing speaking, she said again, Magnificence is really not as bad as you think. He just can't be his mother's home. Everything in his family is his mother's decision. He was really willing to give the bride price at first, but his mother disagreed. Carden also said that after he gets married, his finances will be separated from his mother. Then he will save more money and 300,000 to supply you, then you can buy a house for your brother. Hey? Wait 2 years? The middle-aged woman scolded, Your brother is 22 this year, and we will wait 2 more days to reach 24. We are still thinking about holding our grandson next year. Is it because of him we have to go back wait 2 years? Furthermore, I don't believe what the Carden said at all. He said that in 2 years, what if he doesn't make up the money? By then, you will be married and have a child. You will be worthless. Second hand. What will your dad and I take to buy a house for your brother? The young woman said, Mom, I have been with Carden for a few years. I know what kind of person he is, and he will do it when he says it. What is magnificent? The middle-aged woman said angrily, I tell you Isabella, our family of 3 will never allow you to marry Carden. If you still recognize our family, you will have your child's abortion and broke up with that Carden completely, but if you dare to leave this house today, the 3 of us will cut off all relations with you, and you will be cut off from our family from now on. The middle-aged man said coldly, You have heard what your mother said. What your mother said is what your brother thinks. If you want to go out of this door today, you should make your own decisions. Go out and never come back again. The young woman cried and said, Dad, Mom, and Xiao Feng, are you trying to force me to death? Even if you don't love me, you have to love the child in my stomach? The young man said, Sister, do you want such a love? You are only 2 months pregnant. What kind of child is in your belly? Isn't it just a fertilized egg? When Claire heard this, she sighed, and said, It is my high school classmates who are talking. It seems that their family does not want her to marry today. Charlie nodded, I heard it. Her younger brother is waiting for her gift money to buy a house. In his eyes, his sister is his cash cow. How could he just let her go in vain? At this time, the insults upstairs had escalated. The middle-aged woman scolded angrily, Why did I give birth to a money-losing girl like you? I worked so hard to support you to study and go to college. You haven't made money for your family for 2 years, so you rushed to give birth to others. My child, I knew you were such an unconscionable thing. When you were born, you should have been thrown away. The young woman cried and said, Mom, I went to college and relied on student loans. I still repay the loan. At that time, you didn't want me to go to college. You wanted me to marry as soon as I was 18. Said that the earlier a girl marries, the more valuable it is. I tried my best to get admitted to the university. You still didn't let me go to school. You almost tore up my admission letter and threatened me that if I went to university, you wouldn't pay me a cent for living expenses. These things have you forgotten? Now you say you worked so hard to provide me for college. Have you provided me a penny? The middle-aged woman scolded angrily. The old lady gave birth to you to be the greatest favor to you. You don't know how to be grateful, and you're still clamoring with me here, turning you back. The young woman cried and said, I don't want to yell at you, I just want to reason with you. The 4 years I was in college were not easy. All my living expenses had to rely on me to work and make money. But I am a girl who is not in good health and often gets sick. The little money earned by working is not enough. In school, if it weren't for Cardin, who had been helping me take care of myself, I might not have been able to graduate from college at all. I might have starved to death. Cardin knew about my family's situation at that time, but he never disliked me, so as long as he is willing to marry, I am willing to marry, even if there is no gift of a penny, I am still willing to marry. The middle-aged man scolded, You fraudulent, do you think the bride price is for you to decide? Do you think the bride price is for you? The bride price is for your brother to buy a house. Your brother will marry a wife and give birth. My child, this money will depend on the inheritance of our old Jones family. If you don't have a penny and you just marry like this, wouldn't you want to drive your mother and me to death? The young girl stubbornly said, No matter what, I will marry Cardin today, even if I take a taxi to Oris Hill to marry him, or even walk to marry him, I will marry. There was a crisp sound. The middle-aged man scolded angrily, I will kill you, shameless loser. You patted your bu.tt and left, leaving our family of 3 here. We are just a 30-year-old house. Your brother can marry and have children? When Claire heard that he had started upstairs, he immediately pulled Charlie and said, Let's go over quickly. Originally, Claire felt that it was indeed inappropriate for this family of 4 to argue about themselves as an outsider at home, and now it is somewhat embarrassing to go upstairs. But when she heard the hands upstairs, she didn't care about it. The couple rushed to the 5th floor, and Claire immediately slapped the door of 501. After a while, a wicked young man opened the door and looked at Claire and Charlie vigilantly. Who are you looking for? Claire said, Are you Xiao Feng? I'm Claire, your sister's high school classmate, do you remember me? Upon hearing this, the ailing young man immediately said in surprise, Oh, it's Claire. Of course I remember you. Claire, I haven't seen you in a few years, you are more beautiful than before. Charlie saw that this kid saw his wife's eyes full of scorching heat, and he was a little dissatisfied. He asked Claire, Wife, who is this little brother? Claire introduced, This is Xiao Feng, the brother of classmate Isabella. After speaking, he introduced Xiao Feng, Xiao Feng, this is my husband Charlie. Husband? Xiao Feng asked in surprise, Sister Claire, are you married? Claire nodded and smiled, I have been married for more than 3 years. Where is your sister? Is she at home? At this moment, a girl with red 5 fingerprints on her face came over, pretending to smile and said, You are here so early. This girl is also pretty and has a good figure. She can definitely be regarded as the upper middle class. It's just that the girl is wearing a very cheap wedding dress, and it can even be seen that the lace part of the wedding dress is a little off. A man and a woman walked out of the room again. The couple looked like they were in their early 50s with a cold expression. Looking at Claire, they asked Isabella, "Who are these two people? They came here for what? What are they doing?" Isabella said, "Claire is my high school classmate. She has been to our house before, but you two may have forgotten." Claire said politely, "Hello, Aunt and Uncle. By the way, I haven't introduced yet. This is my husband Charlie." Charlie nodded slightly at the family, without speaking. The middle-aged woman questioned suspiciously, "Isabella, what does it mean for the two of them to come to our house?" Isabella said, "I asked Claire to drive and take me to Oris Hill." "What?" The middle-aged woman gritted her teeth and cursed, "You loser are really determined to marry that fraudulent?" Isabella nodded, and said stubbornly, "If I make up my mind, it won't change." After finishing speaking, she said to Claire, "Claire, I'm sorry to trouble you, you made a special trip so far." Claire hurriedly said, "Isabella, what are you doing so politely with me?" Isabella smiled with satisfaction and said, "Claire, it's not too early, it will take a long time to drive, or let's start now." "Good." Claire nodded and said, "Then let's go now." "Wait a minute." At this time, the middle-aged man with a fierce face stood in front of Isabella and said coldly, "You are a loser, the more you talk about you, the more capable you are, right? I'm telling you, even if the King of Heaven is here today, I can't take you out of this door. Also, I have already greeted your sister-in-law. She has an acquaintance in the obstetrics and gynecology department of the county hospital. She can also work overtime to help with an operation on weekends. You will honestly follow me to the county hospital to get rid of it, and don't deal with that fraudulent carton from now on." "Impossible!" Isabella said categorically, "I cannot kill my child, and no one can stop me from marrying Carden. Unless it is Carden who does not want to marry me, otherwise, even if you want cut off relations with me, and I want to marry today." The middle-aged man immediately picked up a rolling pin that was as thin as his wrist, and pointed it directly at Isabella's face with the tip of the rolling pin, and cursed with his canthus, "If you dare to go out of this door, I will hit your leg. Break it. Even if I break your leg, I can sell you to the disabled in the countryside for 200,000. Saying nothing will make you cheap for that carton." Join our Facebook and WhatsApp group for more updates, link is given in description. Rest audiobook will be continued in next episode.